Prime Minister Skerrit currently touring Asia as part of his fundraising efforts to rebuild Erica-ravaged Dominica. Calypso monarch Dedison Dice Joseph released on bail after he was charged on multiple counts following an incident at the ferry terminal which led to his arrest. And investigators say they are treating the death of a Stockholm woman as a homicide. I am Lurian Graham Carter with the Channel 5 News. Details coming up. First up, Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit is in London, England on the first leg of a four-nation business trip that takes him to several parts of Asia.
The Prime Minister is leading a Dominica delegation to various international forums convened for the promotion and marketing of investment, immigration and various other forms of what is commonly referred to as citizenship by investment programs. At least two other Caribbean Prime Ministers and representatives of other Eastern Caribbean governments are also slated to attend and participate in some of these forums. Following the passage of Tropical Storm Erica at the end of August, Prime Minister Skerrit made known his intention to spearhead a vigorous marketing effort of Dominica's Citizenship by Investment program. This was in a bid to raise much-needed funds for the rebuilding and reconstruction phase of Dominica's physical infrastructure in particular. On this current itinerary, the Prime Minister will be making virtual whistle stops in Hong Kong, Thailand and Vietnam, promoting Dominica as an ideal place to invest and domicile under the Economic Citizenship Program. During the absence of Mr. Skerrit, the Honorable Dr. John Colin McIntyre, Minister for Planning, Economic Development and Investment, will perform the duties of Acting Prime Minister.
In other top stories, Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit has called on the nation to stand resilient as it rebuilds from the ravages of Tropical Storm Erica. Andrea Louis has more.
The Prime Minister was addressing the nation at the National Day Parade on Tuesday. Severe flooding and landslides from Erica left behind $1.2 billion in damage and several deaths.
The majority of damage was sustained in the transport sector, 60%. Followed by the housing sector, 11%, and the agricultural sector, 10%. To date, out of a total population of 72,340 people, 14 people were confirmed dead, 16 are missing, 574 are homeless, and 1,034 evacuated, with approximately 7,229 impacted by the event in special disaster zones.
The Prime Minister commended the many agencies, institutions and individuals who contributed towards Dominica's recovery effort.
To date, 49 countries, 10 multilateral organizations and 52 NGOs, diaspora groups, private companies and individuals outside of Dominica have responded to appeals of assistance with offers that include cash donations, relief supplies, technical expertise, and search and rescue assistance. As at November 2nd, 2015, government had received EC $16 million in emergency cash assistance. In order to get back to where we were before Tropical Storm Erica struck, we have to source at least US $88.2 million for the productive sectors, US $334.55 million for infrastructure, and US $60.09 million for the social sectors.
Prime Minister Skerrit called on Dominicans to each play their part in the development process post-Tropical Storm Erica.
I should caution you, my dear fellow Dominicans, that although we will receive help from development partners and friends, we cannot rely on that alone. We Dominicans must have a positive attitude every time. We must put our shoulders to the wheel and we must lead the rebuilding of this, our country.
Dominica's 37th anniversary of independence was celebrated under the theme, Rebuilding Dominica Together.
Recipient of the Cicero Award of Honor says Dominica is on the right track as a developing nation, celebrating 37 years as an independent state.
Dominica's second highest honor was bestowed on Anthony Wadi Astafan for public and constitutional law at the National Day Parade on Tuesday. Astefan says the country has made great strides in its development and has the right tools to continue to grow as a young independent nation.
When you travel, whether you travel from the very north of the Caribbean down to the very south, Dominica is highly respected and appreciated. And the people throughout the Caribbean, even the world, that are extremely respectful of the achievements that we have made over the last 10, 15 years. We've gone from a nation of bankruptcy to one that is now fighting another disaster with considerable success. It's going to take time, but the international community has rallied around us. We cannot expect it to be done in a day. Rome was never built in a day, but we have the international connections and the leadership in this country that will help us to get through it in our most difficult times.
Astefan says the future of Dominica is optimistic with the present cadre of young Dominicans.
The development of Dominica is in good hands. What I would really like to do is to try to help the young people focus on their careers and their ambitions and to do their very best to reach the levels that I have reached. And I really want, with this award, to try to guide the young people and to try to assist the young people in focusing on their dreams and their ambitions and to achieve what they want to achieve.
More awardees later, but right now, former 7-time Calypso King of Dominica, Denison Dice Joseph, is now on $10,000 bail after he appeared before a Roseau magistrate on 6 charges.
According to reports, Dice, as he is popularly known, was arrested at the ferry terminal on the 1st of November 2015. He is charged with maliciously damaging a wooden passenger counter at the ferry terminal belonging to the government of Dominica, valued at 900 EC dollars. He is also charged with disorderly conduct at the Roseau ferry terminal. A third charge involves threats to the security officers at the Dominica ANC Port Authority. They allege that he threatened their lives. The fourth charge is battery on the security officer at the port. The fifth charge involves threats to the port officers. The sixth one is obstruction of a port security officer while in the lawful execution of his duties. Dice pleaded not guilty to all 6 charges. The prosecution did not object to bail, and he was granted bail in the sum of $10,000 with Patrick Pateron as his surety. He is to keep the peace and be of good behavior while on bail. The matter has been adjourned to the 14th of January 2016. Dice is represented by attorney Joshua Francis.
An advocate for the rights of older persons has pledged her continued commitment to fight for their rights.
President of the Council on Aging, Zet Matuse, spoke to Channel 5 News on Tuesday after having received a Meritorious Service Award of Honor for Health Management. Thurs says better care for and the treatment of the elderly are top on her agenda.
I will continue to give of my best to try to bring services and improve the lives of older persons, because here in Dominica we still have a long way to go in terms of improving the lives of the elderly, because some of them are being abused right here in Dominica, and we have to stamp out the abuse. We have to ensure that they live out the rest of their lives in peace, getting loving care and attention, and that whenever they make a call to them, that they live in peace.
Thurs says the youth are key in helping Dominica move forward as a young nation, and all Dominicans must be involved in the development process. Zet Matuse is also a founding member of the Senior Citizens Association of St. Joseph. Andrea Louis, Channel 5 News.
Economist McCarthy Marie believes an increased population could help Dominica boost its economy.
Marie says the current population trend with a demographic of more retired individuals does not augur well for the country.
Without the population growing, the economy will not grow and people will be less able to meet their physical needs, because we are in a situation right now where the retired population is larger than the people who are below 5 years old. And if that continues like this, we will have no nation. Yes, because we will soon have a situation where there will be more deaths occurring than births, and it's a catastrophe.
Marie, who received the Meritorious Service Award for Music earlier this week, says the progressive music business can also be a plus for the economy. McCarthy Marie is the president of the Association of Music Professionals in Dominica and president of the Association of Caribbean Copyright Societies. Representative of the First Serenade Band, who received a Services Medal of Honor for music, says Dominica can benefit from a well-established music industry.
Music is something that, transcends any barrier, and Serenade is proud to be a contributor to Dominica's music. But I think people should always get their children involved in playing a musical instrument, because, where music can bring you, limitless.
In 1998, the First Serenade Band received an award from the National Cultural Council for outstanding contribution to cultural development in contemporary music.
You are watching Channel 5 News. Coming up, suspected homicide, attempted murder, and the Cultural Gala Awards. Thank you for staying with us. A 3-year-old is left motherless following a domestic dispute on Independence Day. One man is in custody and is being held for questioning in connection to the death of a young woman from Stock Farm.
About 4:50 p.m. on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2015, the police responded to a report of domestic dispute at Stock Farm. On arrival there, the lifeless body of Tricia Nifia Riviere, female, 26 years old of Stock Farm, was met at a residence with injuries. The body was transported to the Accident and Emergency Department of the Princess Margaret Hospital, where it was officially pronounced dead by a medical doctor.
Her son was at the home when the incident occurred. The death of Riviere is being treated as a homicide. Tricia Riviere was an employee at the Raffle Bread Depot in Pottersville. In other police news, a Goodwill man has been charged with the attempted murder of a man from Newtown after inflicting severe wounds all over the victim's body. Mandela Gordon was arrested and charged on Monday, 2nd of November, with the attempted murder of Dean Mitchell.
About 6 a.m. on Saturday, 31st October 2015, the police responded to a report of disorderly conduct at Newtown in the area of Newtown Savannah. On arrival, Dean Mitchell, male adult of Newtown, was found with many serious wounds to his head and hands. He was transported to the Accident and Emergency Department of the Princess Margaret Hospital, where he was examined and admitted as a patient.
In other news now, Minister for Youth, Sports, Culture and Constituency Empowerment says this year's Cultural Gala pays tribute to the resilience of the Dominican people. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the National Cultural Gala initiated by the late Edward Oliver Libla in 1965. The Lifetime Achievement Award was presented to Edna Francis of Petit Savan. He has been the only accordion player for the Petit Savan Cultural Group for 51 years. The sixth form Cicero singers received the E.O. Libla Trophy. Special tribute was also paid to the Petit Savan community most severely affected by Storm Erica.
Petit Savan is one of the most vibrant community in terms of culture. Many lives were lost, and these include Mr. Andrew Daru, a district development officer who was very much involved in the cultural and social development of his community. He will surely be missed.
Charles says the theme for this year's Independence calls for Dominicans to set aside their differences and focus on the task at hand.
The word together calls for all hands to be on deck. While there is a great focus on repairing infrastructural damage, resettling those who were displaced, attending to the needs of those affected, the overall development speaks not only to those directly involved in this process, but requires every citizen to look at your role in rebuilding.
Meanwhile, in the 2015 Independence competitions, Bounty Liverpool won the National English Poetry Competition. Second place went to Delroy Nesta Williams, third place Celia Sorando. Michelle Bell won the English Short Story Competition, Bounty Liverpool second place and Delroy Nesta Williams third place. In the Creole Poetry Competition, Algernon Ducre emerged winner. Second place went to Mary Parilaw and third place to Leandra Lander. In more police news, a 31-year-old man from Kingshill barely escaped death by his own hand on the 3rd of November. At approximately 5 p.m. on Tuesday, Daniel Francis was transported to the hospital by the fire and ambulance service after allegedly ingesting a poisonous substance. He is still a patient at the hospital. Meanwhile, 2 people sustained minor injuries in an accident on the West Bridge in Canefield near Auto Trade. Mesma Alexis and her passenger were treated at the hospital and discharged. Unstable weather associated with a trough system generated quite a bit of rain Thursday, resulting in flooding at Makushri River.
By the time we arrived on the scene, the heavier flood water had receded, but the flood was still causing concern for drivers, leaving some of them hesitant to cross.
Quite a number of the drivers coming down this way, going one way or the other, are pretty cautious in terms of their judgment as to whether they cross. And as you can see, someone there is pretty much contemplating whether they should cross or not. In our view, they could, but because we ourselves, the mapping crew has actually gone back and forth in that area. But I can understand the concern. You're not sure how deep it is and whether you'd be able to wade through it. But drivers have been going back and forth from either side and braving it. But it's not that deep at this point. And as you can see, some of the four-wheel drive vehicles have a better chance at going across, but there's been no incident that we know of as far as people trying to cross. So since the passage of Tropical Storm Erica and days following that, as you can see, and up to today, people are always wary and concerned about this particular area as to what could happen in these areas. It's an area prone to flooding, and what we're seeing here today is evidence of that.
Your sports highlights next with Ken Williams.
Cricket action takes us to Colombo, where rain gave Sri Lanka the advantage for their second ODI against West Indies on Wednesday. The team won by 8 wickets with 9 balls remaining under the Duckworth-Lewis method. Sri Lanka batted second to collect 225 for 2 in 36.3 overs, with Pereira scoring 1 run short of a century, only to be caught by Brathwaite. Charles and Samuels both scored over a half-century, together adding 146 to bring West Indies to 214 all out in 37.4 overs. Sri Lanka led the match 2-0, with Pereira being declared player of the match. Still in cricket, South Africa ended day 1 of their test against India, trailing by 173 runs with 8 wickets remaining in the first innings. Thursday's match favored India with 201 all out in 68 overs, with Vijay adding 75. Elgar claimed 4 wickets for South Africa, with his team only scoring 28 for 2 in 20 overs to close day 1. The teams will face off again on Thursday for the second test match. And finally, in cricket, celebration for Pakistan as they walked off the field after defeating England by 127 runs on Thursday. Pakistan, batting first, gathered a whopping 234 all-out after 85.1 overs. Misbah-ul-Haq and Ahmed saw a partnership of 110 runs for Pakistan in their first innings. This after England's 306 all-out in 126.5 overs. Pakistan added 335 all-out in just 118.2 overs to take the win. England replied with 156 all-out in their second innings, but that wasn't enough to defeat Pakistan. Pakistan then went on to win the match 2-0, with Hafiz claiming player of the match and Shah player of the series. More in sports. Senior Sports Officer Andy Burkhard received the Meritorious Service Award for Physical Education and Sports on Tuesday. Burkhard has been assisting in developing sports in Dominica for a little over 20 years through the Sport Aid Dominica initiative.
The bilateral agreements between Switzerland and Dominica, and now to be honorary consul also in Dominica. I think the relationship between Switzerland and Dominica will grow.
He says the beginning of the program was slow, but it eventually grew into what it is today.
There wasn't much in Dominica, especially not much equipment. And that was the first idea, was because there was so much equipment in Switzerland where we were teaching, Chris and I, we were teaching, and equipment that was still good was thrown away to get new one. So I said, we can't throw that away. I know where to bring it and get people, make children happy with that. And that's what we did. We packed a container and we came here with equipment, but we didn't just bring the equipment, we also brought knowledge, and that's how it started.
Burkhardt says talent is not an issue for Dominican athletes. However, it is important for them to show an interest at an early age, be dedicated, and have a love for the sport in order to be successful. We close off sports with football. Pottersville, Dublin, Castle Bruce, and Portsmouth will see some football action when the 2015 Secondary Schools Football Championship resumes on Friday. Dominica Grammar School will face Pierre Charles Secondary and St. Mary's Academy for an under-15 and under-20 match at Pottersville. The Isaiah Thomas Secondary will take on Northeast Comprehensive and St. John's Academy at Dublin for an under-15 and 17 match. Castle Bruce Secondary will gain home advantage when they play Goodwill Secondary in an under-15 and under-17 category. And finally, Portsmouth Secondary and the Dominica State College will compete in an under-20 match in Portsmouth. Mapping 2K4 will follow these matches and bring you the results in a future sportscast. And that's how we wrap up our sports package. I am Kenny Williams.
That's news. The headlines again. Prime Minister Skerritt currently touring Asia as part of his fundraising efforts to rebuild Erica-ravaged Dominica. Calypso monarch Denison Dice Joseph released on bail after he was charged on multiple counts following an incident at the ferry terminal, which led to his arrest. And investigators say they are treating the death of a Stockholm woman as a homicide. You can email us at news@mapping2k4.com. You can also access our past newscasts on our YouTube page. On behalf of the production team, I am Lillian Graham Carter. Thank you for watching and join us tomorrow.